up again, and if the press had any questions, please feel free to ask of Aaron or Congressman Paco or any of the other speakers.
Aaron, I'd like to ask you about Medicare and Social Security. We talked about that with your opponent yesterday. What's your plan to keep those programs solvent beyond 2030?
Look, Social Security is well solvent into the decade of 2030. The best thing we can do is to grow the economy. And today it's an apt time to ask that question because we've just answered it in several ways. One way is to increase the minimum wage, to put more spending power. Those 140,000 jobs I mentioned would be an incredible boon to the payroll tax. It would be a lot more money circulating. The other very important way we can grow the economy is to close the gender gap. We've talked about that. As Carrie just mentioned, we're talking about $500,000 to $2 million more circulating in the economy over the course of a lifetime. Look, I think Henry Ford had it right. When you pay workers well, they can afford to buy products, and those products can circulate in the economy.
Well, the dean at the Maxwell School, as you may know, who's a former trustee, has said that's not a responsible plan, that something else is needed to reform Social Security to keep it solvent.
Well, you know, there's a lot of research out there, and there are a lot of people opining on this. I have been very strongly convicted in that I will make no changes to Social Security at this moment. I think one of the other things that I would certainly add is to make taxes in general more just. We need to close tax loopholes for millionaires and billionaires. It's got to be part of the discussion.
Yesterday at her press conference talked about the healthcare reform and the restructuring of payments to hospitals and doctors, and she says that because you support the healthcare reform bill, that you're supporting these cuts to doctors and hospitals. Can you respond to that, and can you talk about your strategy for keeping hospitals and health centers viable in the coming years?
Well, I think my opponent cites research that's inconsistent with the research that we cite on that issue. We have an enormous amount of support for the Affordable Care Act. I think we should be talking today about how the Affordable Care Act affects women. Under the old system, women could be charged more simply because they were women, and they might become pregnant. You know, my opponent made the basis of her entire platform repealing the Affordable Care Act, and now we see her wavering on that issue as well. I think it's really important that she take a clear stand on that, as she does on Medicare.
Would you have voted for the Affordable Care Act?
You know, I wasn't in Congress then. I'd like to think that I might have seen some of the problems. This is a piece of legislation that I think almost everybody admits is a flawed piece of legislation. But we got to go forward from here, and we have to repair the parts that aren't working.
What do you see is not working, one particular part? Medical device tax, something else?
I have come out against the medical device tax. I think it's an example of punishing success. Medical devices are actually something that we do incredibly well in this country, and I don't think they should be singled out.
Anything else?
How would you offset the loss of revenue? Trying to get the repeal of the medical tax through is, how do you offset that loss of revenue, and what's your thoughts about that?
Well, Aaron already mentioned part of the opportunity to draw in revenues is to close loopholes, tax loopholes on some of these groups that need to be reined in, and those dollars are always invested in programs that will strengthen the masses with something like the Affordable Care Act. I can't help but comment here, Aaron, forgive me. 50-some times I've been asked to repeal the Affordable Care Act, and I voted no. There was never replacement. It's all repeal. When you look at every poll coming out, the great majority of Americans, great majority, has said, keep the Affordable Care Act, improve it, don't repeal it. I've never heard a replace measure offered. And let's also remember that Aaron's opponent is very much connected to the Ryan plan. She's been endorsed by Representative Ryan. I believe she's been given assistance, economic assistance by Mr. Ryan. I would probably check on that. I don't know if I'm accurate, but I'm assuming there's an association there. What do you think happens when you go to Washington? A number of those contributions made are saying, you know, we want this certain partnership. So I think it's going to be business as usual. And I'll tell you, the Ryan plan would devastate the 21st or the 20th congressional district, and I have every reason to believe it would be even more painful for the 21st. There are painful measures in that Ryan plan, including the Social Security issue, where we adjust that in a very negative way, and where we also voucher out Medicare. Now, if your fingerprints are all over these plans, the public needs to know that. They need to be concerned. And so I think the association here is with the team that's already said over and over again to the cost of taxpayers, each of the 50-some times, there's the cost of producing and printing the bill, the time and everything. That is costly to the taxpayer with no legitimate outcome. No replacement, just repeal. Let's go back to the story. Why did we get into the issue to begin with? Because small businesses, the backbone of our economy, were paying 18% more than industrial in customers for that same insurance program, getting less of a plan, and also watching the forecast, which we're going to take the premium costs off the charts. So there was a need, a corresponding need for us to compete in an international market. We needed to help our business community because it was employer-based. So let's not forget the genesis of this mission. And it was done for good purposes. We're working through this to improve. But this idea of repeal with no replacement is sheer foolishness because it takes us back to the wounded days, and they also ignore all the benefits that the people do enjoy. Free screenings for seniors, annual checkups for seniors, reduction in that by 2020, undoing the donut hole that has drowned many a senior because of catastrophic illness. All these benefits, on and on. Young people being able to attach to their parents' policy. All of these great initiatives would be lost. They don't want to talk about that. It sounds good to say repeal, but you know, let's call it what it is. It's not fair to the 21st, it's not fair to the 20th, and we can do better than that.
Congressman, you mentioned the contributions that Ms. Stefanik has received from Mr. Congressman Ryan and the associations that those bring. Would a Democrat receiving contributions from Leader Pelosi and the Deputy Leader have the same associations and the same commitments?
I'm talking about deep pockets in contributions. Colleagues will offer contributions. I've offered contribution to Aaron because I believe in his campaign. I want him to be a colleague. I want him to be there because of his soulfulness, because of his thoughtfulness, his sensitivity, his compassion for the people who are in need. And our two districts have that given core constituency. Higher education, public safety, healthcare. These are needs that the growing middle or the middle class requires, and they're content with shrinking the middle class. So of course I'm going to give to this gentleman because he poses wonderful opportunities for this congressional district, the kind of course of progress that you want to follow built upon the track record of Representative Owens.
Just on a related point, when we talk about campaign contributions, 40% of your incoming so far is from yourself. It's like $400,000 loan. Is that a help or a hindrance at all? I mean, when you go on the campaign trail or as a candidate?
Look, I think that, we are very lucky to be in a position to make contributions. I think I'm asking hardworking people, labor unions, citizens of the 21st District to contribute to my campaign. I think it's right and proper that I should do the same. And I'm very proud of the amount of support we've garnered. I'm very proud of the amount of people in very small donations, the amount of money that we've built up. But I think that the most important thing to be doing is to be focusing on voters' concerns. And that's what this campaign is about. And certainly the concerns of women are paramount among those.
Never comes up on the trail or anything like that?
You're bringing it up, I think.
For the second, not
No.
constituents or anything?
No.
Just to go back to your point from earlier about growing the economy and raising the minimum wage as a means of helping keep Social Security solvent, is that really the focus right now for you in terms of Social Security? Do you have any other plans, ideas on keeping Social Security and Medicare solvent beyond 2030? Anything specific to those programs?
I think the economy is growing. I think it's really important that growth extend to all working families in this district. And I think those are very strong ways of growing our Social Security Trust Fund. As I mentioned, also cutting loopholes for millionaires and billionaires. Look, my opponent has come out and said that she wants to raise the retirement age. For whom? When? And how? She won't make any specifics. I think that's something of great concern to the people in our district. She's talked about linking Social Security payments to change CPI. If that happened, That would affect seniors right now, right here, reducing their Social Security checks. We don't have a Social Security crisis. We have a retirement crisis. We have a system that was designed to provide a good retirement for our seniors that included savings, included pensions, and included Social Security. Now, what's happened to savings? And we've seen real wages stagnate the way they have, next to the cost of living. We are going to keep savings. Savings can no longer be a significant portion for many of the seniors in our district. When we see pensions get replaced by 401ks, that can no longer be as certain. So we have a lot of people who had thought they were depending on this three-legged stool for their retirement, depending on a one-legged stool. I know dozens, hundreds of seniors that I've met on the campaign trail that depend on Social Security as their sole source of income. That's why we say no cuts, no affecting it now.
And if I could just, Steve, add to that answer, because it's so real, so recent. This morning I gathered with the folks from GE, Hudson Valley, and certainly the Step Park in Malta, where we cut the ribbon for a brand new fuel cell manufacturing center. So they're taking the research from GE R&D in Niskayuna and applying it in Malta to a manufacturing center. What does that tell us? Research equals jobs. So minimum wage, you raise that, you're getting more strengthening of the Social Security Trust Fund, but it also happens when you invest in research. We need to be on a path of investment, investing in the future generations, investing in today. And the Ryan Plan cuts that opportunity. It takes us backward. It's a very painful, callous approach to how to solve some issues in Washington. It's not what this country needs. The North Country certainly doesn't deserve that. The Capital Region and Mohawk Valley don't deserve that. When you invest in research, you can expect great things to happen. An innovation economy requires that. And if you're going to grow good jobs, significant jobs, if you're going to raise the minimum wage, I don't know how these people do it. They will cut the minimum wage. These people will not respond to the minimum wage increase. And at the same time, they'll tell you don't qualify for hunger programs. They want to cut that by $40 billion. Heartless. And they say on the House floor, if you want to eat, get a job. Guess what? Do your homework. People have 2, maybe 3 jobs and still qualify for the programs.
And if it's boosting the economy that helps the Social Security Trust Fund, do you believe it would be the same for Medicare as well, and particularly with Part A that's supposed to become insolvent in 20 years?
A lot more.
Yes, indeed. That's the same. The payroll taxes will go to boost that as well. We just had the Medicare trustees extend that period of solvency for another 4 years. I think it's really important that seniors be assured that they have a representative that will support the Medicare guarantee.
So this claim your opponent's making that she put out there again yesterday, that by supporting the Affordable Care Act, supporting Medicare cuts, which it's been reported that physicians were dropped from the Medicare Advantage plans. What's your specific response to that claim?
That is not consistent with our research.
You know, this one deserves a response. Medicare cuts that they claim they are against, they took those Medicare cuts, they're bending the cost curve. It was taking away some lucrative payment that was made to insurance companies. They were reining it in. They said they could do some of these wellness prevention programs and give us a chance to do it. And the records show that we're paying a little too much into the profit column for those programs. That's where the cuts came. So it was a legitimate approach of an issue without hurting services, reining in costs, and saying, absorb a little less profit here. Here's the irony. The Republican majority took those savings and applied them towards tax cuts for the rich. That's disingenuous. We took those savings and made certain we applied them into a healthcare scenario. That is disingenuous. To even suggest that is appalling. They took that money, ran. No shame face there at all. Just apply it to tax cuts for the wealthy.
Will Roy Thomas, who's standing behind you there, be showing up in the movie that some say you're making about your campaign?
Let me be clear, I'm not making a movie about this campaign. I'm running for Congress to run for Congress and to represent the people of the 21st District.
Roy was practicing his lines. You can go back to fishing now.
His makeup looks great.
Do we have any other questions from the press?
Yeah. Who will you be supporting in the upcoming primary? Teach Out or Cuomo?
I'm gonna reserve, just as I sought support from many colleagues when there was a possibility of me having a primary and they refused to comment, I think we'll let the democratic process play out.